welcome to this week's video. I'm Dr. Jo Lukens and you're joining me in Mind Advantage, videos that I record each week, just sharing with you a concept in sports psychology and high performance thinking that we can apply potentially in our own lives. And each week I encourage you not only to take on board the content and think about how it might be relatable for you, but also to think about how you can teach it to somebody else, because we know that's one of the cornerstones of really embedding our own particular learning. So for this week's topic, I'm actually going to share with you a quote. I actually said it in the video last week. It's a quote that I use often, and I included it in the video, and then someone reached out to me and said, can you talk a bit more about that? So always really appreciate the feedback, and if there is anything you want me to cover, happy to do so. So I'll just bring the quote up now for you to see and give you a chance to read it, which says that you won't always feel motivated, so you need to have discipline, and you won't always have discipline, so you need to create habits. So this is something I have always considered to be a really important part of getting us closer to high performance, that often what people are seeking is the things that are bright and shiny, all the shiny things. They want to buy the latest gadget, do the latest thing, read the latest trendy concept, and some of those things have merit and some of them don't. I'm a bit of a stickler for what there is an evidence base for, and what I often say to people is that sure, we can do some of the bright and shiny things, and certainly in sports psychology there's lots of really boutique individual concepts that might be really applicable for someone that they can learn, but what it takes before you do that is to have all of your foundations in place. And this, to me, this quote really fits into that, because if you have another look through the quote, there's three key concepts in there. There's motivation, there's discipline, and there's habits. So let's start with motivation, because I usually find when people set themselves a goal, motivation normally follows. Motivation often follows also from action. So if ever you're feeling a little unmotivated, sometimes we've just got to get up and do something. But the challenge with motivation is it's really reflective of where our physical and mental state is. So if we've not had a good night's sleep, if we are tired, if we've come to the end of a long week or the end of a long month, or it's the back end of the year, then we often find that we have that physical and mental fatigue. And so summoning up the energy to be motivated can be more challenging. So one of those things with motivation is it kind of ebbs and flows. And what you typically find is as we fatigue, motivation levels will actually drop. So that's something really important to think about. So often people might feel a bit more motivated at the start of the day, or definitely at the start of the week. There's a whole body of psychological science about why we're much more likely to take something on a Monday than a Friday, for those of us that live and work a typical week. So we know that motivation ebbs and flows. So the challenge is, how do we persist and continue on our path to high performance when our motivation is low? And so that's where that's challenging. And I often say to people, motivation is one of those things we need to refill in the tank. It's a bit like showering. You need to do it every single day. So we can't always necessarily rely on feeling motivated. So therefore it relies on the next part of the quote, which is you need to have discipline. You need to be able to be uncomfortable, not feel like doing something, not want to, be sitting on the couch and going, I would rather be here than doing something else. And we need to be able to push through whatever that is. So we need to be disciplined that when we finish our gym session, that we still go and do our recovery at the end, even though the temptation is to get in the car and to go home. We need to be able to sit at our desk and do a little bit of study or a little bit of work at the end of a day if we're working towards a course, even though watching Netflix on the couch is probably a far more enticing option for us to do. So you need to have discipline, because that will carry you through when motivation levels are low. The challenge is, again, discipline is also affected by two things: by our self-talk, so what you say to yourself. So if you're saying things to yourself like, well, maybe next week I'll start it on a Monday, I'll start it on the 1st, I'll do it later, I'll be more disciplined tomorrow. That is often a common bias that humans have. I hate to be the one to spoil the party, you won't be. It's just a way of kind of kicking the can down the road and delaying that a little bit. So the discipline factor is, it's a little bit like a muscle. It's like a muscle. It's not a muscle, but it's a little bit like a muscle in our head. The more we work it, the better we get at it. So discipline is something that we can certainly build upon But again, it's more reliable than motivation, but it's not necessarily the thing that's going to get us through. The thing that's going to get us through is the element that's in the last part of the quote. In fact, it's the very last word in the quote, which is the word habits. So you won't always have discipline, so you need to create habits. I think it was Stephen Covey who said that, when we're under stress and when we're under pressure, we fall to our habits. What does that mean? It means we go back to default. When we're tired and we're fatigued, we just go back to what we know. And so if you've ever noticed yourself traveling a well-worn path of doing things, so maybe it's the end of the week, you come home at the end of the week, and then you go, oh, I can't be bothered to cook, I'll get takeaway. And you do that every Friday night. Now, I'm not adverse to that, and often we have takeaway on a Friday. But what you'll find is that will just become a habit, and then you just won't give it any thought, or you'll give it minimal thought as to whether or not you're going to make a decision around that, whether or not you're going to be disciplined around that, whether or not you're going to be motivated around that, motivated to cook, and you'll simply just order the takeaway. And that's fine if you're happy to have takeaway every Friday night, and hope you enjoy it. But what we need to be aware of is that when we are tired and when we're fatigued, we will fall to our habits. By in reverse, I guess, the other way to think about it is that our habits can also help lift us out of times when we're not feeling motivated. So when we have strategies to build on our habits and we can develop them further, then we get ourselves closer to success. So in the tough times when we're tired and fatigued, and if you're in a competitive environment and everyone's tired and fatigued, it's not so much about how motivated you are or how disciplined you are, it's about have you created the habits so you don't have to think about it so much, so you simply just go straight onto the foam roller at the end of the gym session and do your recovery work, that you turn the television off at X o'clock, whatever time that is, every single night, and go to bed, read a book for 10 minutes and then go to sleep. Or you simply lift up your journal and you write a couple of notes in it before you go to sleep. So it's our habits that will carry us through, and it's actually, you will get so much more benefit in terms of getting closer to your high performance when you have habits in place. Now, how to get the habits is probably a whole other conversation, and we certainly will record some videos around that. This quote actually comes from my first book, The Elite, so there's plenty more that you can find in there. And if you're someone who likes to take in your audiobooks, I think Spotify, Audible, one of them, if you have a subscription there, you can actually listen to the book for free, and there's a whole chapter in there about habits. So that's the topic for this week. Now remember, the key learning with all of these videos is, what have you taken out of the video today that you would like to carry with you? What's the key messages? Is it about the fact that motivation ebbs and flows? Is it about the fact that discipline is that little mental muscle that you have that says, I know I don't feel like it, but I'm going to do it anyway? Or is it about the impact that habits will have for us? What I'd encourage you to do is to share that with someone, teach it to someone, explain to them, what your thinking is around motivation or discipline and habits. Jot down a couple of notes, because when you share it with someone else, when you teach someone else the concept, it gets you much closer, not only to them benefiting from it, and I'm sure they'll be very grateful to you, but it also gets you closer to instilling the learning into your own life and getting the benefits from it. So if you'd like to continue watching my videos each week, all you need to do in the YouTube channel is hit on the subscribe button, and the videos will be there for you. And also welcome to join my Facebook group, Winning Strategies, if you would like more of a community around that, and if you're on Facebook. But until now, I look forward to seeing you in next week's video.